Wow. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Glad to see you here again this week. Sandy, you're looking sharp. How's it going?
Trying. Great. Yourself?
Very good. Very good. Been lots of nice warm weather this summer, and I think that's helped with people getting out there, even through all of what's going on. And things have been strong. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. The real estate market is wild and crazy this year, as we've been talking about. So, lots of opportunities, but also tough going around, at least around where we are, right, in terms of getting some deals. They are getting scooped up quickly.
I saw a post the other day. I didn't read too much into it. I saved it for later, but that this year, this past July, more houses in Ontario have sold than any other month in the last 40 years.
Wow. Well, July was a really, July is typically, it's a little not slow, but it's not the most active month, right? Because it's people getting into the warm weather, but definitely we had a late spring action, for obvious reasons, and July was a wild one. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's people moving north, and then those people moving more north. I think is what's going on. Seems like everyone wants out of the city.
Yes, exactly.
Everyone should go over to our website, breakthrough.reipodcast.ca. There you can listen to this and all of the other episodes that we've done in the past. And that seems to be one of your best choices right now, because we've had a little bit of technical difficulty. I think it's all cleared up. If you're listening on iTunes, definitely cleared up, but we've had some problems. And so we have been looking into them lately, and hopefully they'll be fixed up soon.
They should be fixed now. If it's not, you're probably listening to this, it's probably okay. But excuse the couple weeks of hiccups there. It's all for better growth going forward. We're transitioning to a couple of new tools and stuff tech wise, and it's going to all make things better and more available, so we can get these out as much as we have and more going forward. So that will be fixed, and then obviously they can listen and watch on Facebook live every week, Wednesdays 10:30, and then YouTube as well. If they want to watch, join into the chat and ask some questions live on the air, they can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and then I'm just looking now, Sandy. We're still not up there. It's like we don't exist anymore.
So worry, it's coming.
I can't read our reviews, but I do know that one came in the other day, and they gave us 1 star for not being available the last couple of weeks.
Well,
I'm really sorry about that, guys. I do feel like the reviews should be of the actual content of the show, whether you like it or not. Maybe not whether you're having technical difficulty listening to the last few episodes or not. But that's just my opinion. Feel free to leave whatever you want in there. Sandy, we've also got a free gift there that they can get on our website when they go.
Yeah, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. They can pick that up, and also when they do that, you get on our email list to get access to everything that we do. Essentially, you'll hear about all the updates every show. So I think that is a really good reminder of a way that people get reminded of the show, because whether you're listening on iTunes or wherever you're listening, all of our shows are available on the website. And so when you get on our email list, you'll be notified and you'll get reminded, hey, check this new episode out. We just interviewed so-and-so, and you won't miss out on a show. And you can go listen to them on our website right now. And you would have had got notice about that if you're on our email list. So go do that, and you won't miss out on a show, even if we do have technical issues here and there. And you'll also hear about all of our live events and things like that we got going on. So go jump on, get the free gift there, but also join in on our email list and get access to it all.
Sounds good. And I'll just say this, because normally you'd be able to go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you'll be able to do that then. And we will continue to read those comments on the air. And we do appreciate all of the input that you guys have given us. So thanks very much. And of course, subscribe wherever you're listening to it. If it's Facebook, if it's YouTube, if it's iTunes, wherever you're listening to it, subscribe and hit the notification button so that you'll get all the notifications of the new episodes when they come out. Okay. I think we got through that.
We made it. Okay, let's bring on our guest. I think we're ready for him. We got awesome guest here with us today, Jake Novis, and Jake began diving into the real estate investment world with his mother and became a REIN member, a real estate investment network member at the age of 16. That's got to be one of the younger members out there. And he attended McMaster University in 2013, studied mechanical engineering and management. During his time there, he continued to shadow his mother's investment journey, attended REIN meetings. He then took a leap and partnered with her on 2 multifamily properties in Hamilton, 6-unit and a 9-unit, and taking on all sides of the acquisition. And now is a full-time multifamily investor with a strong focus on the management side of things. So really excited to welcome to the show, Jake Novis.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the show.
Happy to have you. So as we usually do, let's start with how you got started in real estate investing. We touched on it a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty hard to get 16-year-olds to go out and sit through a REIN meeting, I would imagine. So
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, around the age of 16 or so, just going through high school, doing the usual thing. Never really knew investing was a thing, never mind just like general financial management and long-term planning. Around that age, my mom started getting into the real estate business. So she joined REIN, kind of looking for a way to build some wealth and long-term generational wealth. At that point, she kind of forced my hand and dragged me along to the REIN meetings. I was a little reluctant and hesitant at first. Obviously, didn't quite fit in there. The age range is a little older than I was at the time. Not really many people in my group, but just kind of stuck with it, went along. Fell asleep at a few of the meetings, I believe, and just tried to absorb as much as I could and just really learn whatever I could, meet a few people, network, just kind of see how that world works. Continue to just learn about real estate. And eventually, when I moved to Hamilton to go to McMaster University, started thinking about an investment property. So at that point, it was more or less looking for a student rental to kind of house hack, purchase one, live in one unit, rent out the bedrooms. Obviously hard to qualify as a student. So we ended up pressing hold on that. Didn't really work out. So just kind of kept learning and growing. At that point, we looked at I looked at joining her on the active side of multifamily investments. So by that time, she had a few residential properties, a couple multifamilies that I had actually silent or joint ventured in. So just a capital partner and just kind of watching her, what she did with whatever savings I had at that point. And from there, I basically, living in Hamilton, worked out very well. It was a target market for us at the time. And I basically took on all the acquisition sides of that first property. So over about a year or so during my second year of school, touring properties, looking around, eventually did purchase the first 6-unit building there. And not as involved in the management of things. So we did have property managers at that time. So that was one side that I've now moved towards. But at the time, it was just acquisition. So I was focusing on the purchasing. My mother is a financial wizard and a joint venture capital raising guru. So she handled all of that side at the time. Although I was involved in it, with her doing the presentations, staying up to date with what was happening. Kind of repeated that process with the next building a year later. So that was the 9-unit in Hamilton. Same exact story, same sort of value add strategy we're going for those properties. Once I graduated, so after a few more years, just owning those and focusing on my schooling, moved to Waterloo for an engineering position. I had rented an apartment for a few months, but I quickly realized I didn't want to pay for rent. So, and just want to keep building the portfolio. So I did purchase a condo in Waterloo just for myself to live in. Pretty much did a full gut of that condo and renovated it up to a higher quality style. And after about a year of living there, we moved forward with one additional purchase in Cambridge. So another 6-unit building, which I'm actually living in one of the units right now and working on. And at that time, it made sense. We had one unit vacant here that needed a lot of work. So I moved into this, rented out my condo. And then after a few months of being here and just kind of seeing how the management, because we did have a property manager for this property because I knew I couldn't handle that at the time working full time. Around December or so of last year, we started discussing our portfolio is kind of at that size of, a full-time property manager to take over all the units. We also started looking ahead at the long-term goals. So, you see people like obviously yourselves really invested in real estate and also running business like Sandy, you have the executive and guys like Kyle Poulos who are in it, but now growing. Guys like Mike Rockwell, Mark Baltzar, I follow them a lot. They've obviously are fully invested in the business full-time. And I kind of realized, in order to grow the business and also just have more control over what we're doing with our current portfolio, it would be a great opportunity to dive in and just take over management. So spent a few months building up the management business behind the scenes while I was working, making sure I had everything in place. And then as of March this year, took over management of our portfolio, and then just been working on growing that since.
It's funny. It seemed like everyone was making big moves around March, which I don't know. Maybe it's fortunate or unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
Yeah.
I thought at first, it just coincidentally when COVID kind of hit, that's when I took over. I thought it would be a terrible time for it, but it actually worked out well because it kind of gave us a little bit of leeway in terms of not entering units. And I mean, everybody was slower in general. So I actually spent all of COVID.
Oh, you're mute there, Jake. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so actually I had a good couple months there where nobody was really doing much, but I was able to just grind out on the business and make sure I had everything in place while I was taking over. So it worked out well, actually.
Great. That's good. That's good. So are you guys looking outside or only your own portfolio?
Yeah, the plan is only ever to be my own portfolio. I've had people come up to me actually as soon as I started at a networking event asking if I would take over theirs. I've declined it for now. The plan that I really want to focus on is building up my raising capital and acquisition side of things to buy more properties and just manage those. So that's kind of the plan right now. I don't really see myself taking over other people's properties. It is a lot of work. It's not an easy job. And I really just I spend a lot more time on our own portfolio, I think, than I would like to ask of another property manager, just because, we want to keep growing it. And a lot of the time I'm looking at ways to grow and raise capital and purchase more buildings now. And I think it's just going to make more sense for me to grow it just for our own. That's the plan.
Okay. So what does the portfolio look like right now?
Yep. So right now I'm managing 40 units. So 22 of those I'm an active partner in. 8 of those I was a silent partner in. And then the other 12 is one of my mother's other properties in Hamilton. So there's 4 multifamilies in Hamilton, 1 in Cambridge. I do have the condo as well. So I've taken over all of those at the moment.
Right on. Well, that's awesome. And I guess you guys are actively always looking for the next one.
Yeah, I've kind of put a pause on things I guess so far this year, just because I really want to make sure. I know there's been a lot of growing pains and a lot of steep learning curves with these properties that I'm learning from, and kind of consistently making notes of what I would change next time. I think within the next year or so, I'd like to start raising money and looking at another acquisition. I think for the rest of this year, I'm really just trying to dial down my systems and processes with the management company to make sure I can take that on. So right now I'm pretty busy and overloaded sometimes. So making sure that I'm outsourcing correctly and have the teams in place to be able to grow the portfolio.
Awesome. I'm just trying to do some math here. How old are you right now?
24, turning 25 next month right now.
25. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Wanted to get some clarity on those. That's a lot of units for your young age. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Quick question before we move on from the management. Well, we can obviously look into this, but explain a little bit about what you took on as far as that management goes.
Yeah, in terms of roles and I guess day-to-day roles or
Sure. So what is your active job right now? What do you
so good. Yeah, exactly. So yep. So I basically have taken over everything, I guess, from the start. So from tenant communications, repairs and maintenance and flow, general bookkeeping. My mother is an accountant, so I do pass it off to her for the final reconciliations each month. But lease ups right now, planning all the renovations. I have been doing some of the renovation work, so I've got some experience there. So when it makes sense to take on those, if I have the time, I do those as well. So far, the only thing I really outsource is my paralegal for LLTB matters. I did spend a lot of time when I was building up the business to read through a lot of the Residential Tenancies Act, make sure I knew what's going on, try to learn as much as I could, but I then realized the LTB kind of reacts better to paralegals handling those matters, and it's just better for her to focus on those. So I outsource that. And I have recently, obviously, most of the repairs and maintenance on the properties I have outsourced. Obviously finding new contractors all the time, but everything from lease ups, repairs and maintenance, tenant responses, just about everything in the business I'm handling right now myself.
And you mentioned systems. Just is there any innovative systems that you want to share with people about what you're doing?
For sure. I mean, I think the systems and procedures I've set in place are kind of the reason I'm able to handle this number of units and also look at handling a lot more units without any issues. So while I was building the company, I spent a lot of time building up, say, an operating procedure for how I run the business in every sense. So how do I accept rents? For example, right now I use Buildium, a property management software. So I spent a while trying to find what kind of software can take in all the maintenance requests, put out the reports, take in the rents. So I actually use that for, say, accepting rents. I only have 1 or 2 tenants that don't pay through that software, and that basically puts my rental collection time down to 0. Other things like my lease-up procedures. So I've spent a lot of time with Quentin D'Souza has a great book on management and leasing process. So a step-by-step guide of what I do. So how I renovate the units, an inspection checklist, how I create the ad. So I've got a template for that, how I'm going to market that ad, response to how I get messaging, how I do the viewing, all those things. So I basically have just built up standardized procedures for all that stuff that really lets me just kind of spend almost no time in thinking about what should I be doing and just kind of use the templates that I've set up. And all sorts of templates, like obviously the notices that I send out, emails, communications, everything is sort of standardized at this point. I need to do some sort of touch-ups here and there, but now that it's all there, the foundation is set, I just kind of improve on it as I go.
Right on. Awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about the pros and cons about apartment buildings and the 5+ units and because you actually pretty much started right into that, right? Am I right with that? Or did you ever explore other avenues, or why did you get into that specific type of property?
Yeah, so great question. It was my first purchase was a part of the was a multifamily property. So I did try to, as I mentioned before, sort of get into the student rental market as a student. Ran into a lot of hiccups, obviously trying to qualify and needing co-signers, things like that. It's obviously difficult. So one of the biggest reasons that I focus on multifamily and I'm going to moving forwards is just lending requirements. So it's all based on the property's financials. The only thing that investors need is I think it's like 25% of the net worth of the loan and a minimum around 100,000 in assets on average for each investor. So with our joint venture partners, we have no problem qualifying for those. Whereas any residential purchases is a bit of a nightmare, especially for myself when I was starting out with no income and also young now with minimal income. And it's just a difficult procedure. So lending requirements is probably one of the biggest pros. And that's kind of the reason why I got into it initially. Yep. In other words, I think there's a number of different pros in multifamily. One of them I would say is economies of scale. So when I manage these properties, obviously I'm managing 6 units all under one roof. It's a lot easier. One maintenance system, one roof, one set of laundry in the common area. Closing costs when purchasing are there's only one fee. There's one lending fee. All those kind of go to make multifamily, I think, a lot more affordable and feasible of an investment option. And that's kind of the second, I think, biggest option and biggest pro for multifamily investing.
Any cons?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So a few of the cons I've recently learned are that, it is almost like having multiple families, as some people have said. And being the project manager on those, you do get a lot of conflicts between tenants. You have one bad apple that can kind of affect the rest and really inhibit or really restrict, I guess, growth in the entire building. So, for example, the 190 in Hamilton, we've got a couple bad tenants there that we're working on sort of helping get out, but it does impact the rest of the building. We get complaints all the time about these people, and it's hard to improve on a property like that. So that's one of the, I guess, management downsides. The other con, obviously, is greater capital requirements. Like you need a lot of joint venture capital to get into the deals, right? So anything 6 and up, kind of ballpark, looking at like 35% of the purchase price for down payment and closing, things like that. And that's a lot of money to raise, right? So it's easier to get into a single or a duplex for those reasons as well.
Yeah, it is tough. You have, you get 10+ units, 10+ tenants. There's bound to be, you can screen and do all you can. And there's bound to be not necessarily a really bad apple, but there's bound to be someone stirring the pot a little bit with things, right? Whether maybe they just, in a couple of years they've been there, they gradually start to change their life or whatever, right? You never know. You can't, things you can't avoid in those bigger buildings sometimes that are it's just you're gonna nature of the beast, right? You're gonna deal with it.
Yeah, and it's a con, but it's almost also a pro, because things like that and things like, say they stop paying rent, so or vacancies, is obviously a much smaller hit to your bottom line than if you have a single family and they're the problem, right? So a pro and a con, but I mean, it's something to be aware of, definitely.
Rob's talking, but he's muted.
There
you go.
I was going to say, let's talk about how the transition into becoming a full-time investor. That's what a lot of people want to hear about when they listen to people. And I think that more for you, if I'm not wrong, it was almost thrust upon you as like you really didn't have much choice. But I'm sure that there's growing pains and things that maybe you learned along the way that you weren't expecting. What was your job before you transitioned out?
Yeah, so I worked at a robotic software company for about 2 years at a university. So just a normal 9 to 5 job there out in Waterloo.
And then what prompted you to look towards becoming full-time and quitting that job?
Yeah, so it was definitely a difficult decision. I think one of the biggest realizations is that unless you're the silent partner, as much as everybody thinks it's a passive investment for an active partner, it's more of an active business, right? It's active. It's not really as passive as some people think if you are running and investing in the business. So kind of just realizing that although we had management in place to handle the day-to-day things, if we want to really grow and reach the potential of what we kind of want to do, needed to be fully involved in that, as well as I personally am more passionate about this environment, this work environment. I love my old job and I love that industry, but I think I was just a better fit for this, and it kind of excited me. And the thoughts of working on, basically, if I'm working the old job, making income and still able to invest on the side, it's great. But 9 to 5, I'm making somebody else wealthy, right? So I want to be able to work on my own portfolio as my day job, but as a result, still making myself and our investors wealthy. So that was kind of the biggest thing of where am I spending my time, and then also it's just something I've been kind of my end goal for a long time was to be a full-time real estate investor, and this opportunity just kind of came across and realizing it's what I had to do, and it worked out really well. Yeah.
And without going into too much detail, obviously, was it difficult to replace that income?
Yeah, definitely. I by no means, I think, replaced it to the same degree. But at this stage in my life right now, I'm living in one of our properties. I'm keeping my expenses down. I'm just being, cautious with, say, living expenses to keep it down where I haven't fully replaced my income, and I'm not exactly sure when that will be, but I'm able to sort of get by for now, and it's plenty to get by on, and I get to spend all my days focusing on the portfolio and growing it, where I think I can grow to where we want to be multiple times faster now that I'm focusing on this business every single day. Whereas it was very difficult. I mean, it's difficult to invest part-time if you want to substantially grow as working full-time. So I just think I can grow a lot faster now to a point where I want to get to. Obviously replacing full income will be just a bit of a longer journey, but it's a trade-off for me.
Well, I mean, you getting in the industry so young. I mean, you said you're going to REI meetings at 16. That probably helped. You maybe don't need as big of an income. Some people trying to transition out in their 40s, 50s, etc. Might look a little different. But what kind of if someone else is out there at age 18, 20, it's that type of thing. Any advice for them on how they could get in and get an early head start on this and really dive into the industry, at that sort of age?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to get a mentor and to get people around you that are sort of on the same goal. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful and blessed to have the opportunity of working with my mother who's doing that. But I just think, say, for example, I know Kyle Poulos was on here, and he started managing his dad's portfolio, I think, while he was living there, he mentioned. And that's a great way to just get your foot in the door and get experience and start working on it. And I think just having people around you and reaching out to people, specifically a mentor, but then in addition, just growing your network to see what you need and how you can get involved. And one thing I know, I follow Matt McKeever is a big influence for me. One thing he recommends is just try to provide value. So if you don't have anybody like that, find what you're good at. Reach out to somebody and say, hey, can I help you with this? Just to get kind of your foot in the door and get involved and help out. And then that's somebody that you can sort of bounce ideas off of and use as a mentor to help grow as if you're young. And I think that'd be the biggest one for me.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I think 100% agree, especially if you don't have as much value to add, early on, and like you're not gonna expect to get paid necessarily for everything. Just go find some ways to help out and force your way into that mentorship, right? Maybe you might think some people don't have time for you, but trust me, everyone will. There's a way that everyone will make time for you if you're giving value to them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, is I think it's pretty important to offer something back. Like, don't look for something for free, offer something back. And that way someone doesn't feel like there's a lot of people out there that will just say, hey, can I get all the information from you? Can I come out and learn what you know? And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think that if there's something that you can offer back, it always just makes people feel better, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have that value, or you see something, you can always learn it, right? So for example, I wasn't comfortable saying I'm going to manage this portfolio because there's an obligation to say my mother's portfolio, my investors, our investors, that these need to be run with the best possible option, which before I knew anything is previous property management, right? They're doing a way better job than I could. So I spent a lot of time learning and making sure that, when I take over, I'm going to provide value and a lot of additional value as well, that, above and beyond, to make sure that it was the right decision, and that somewhat working for free in some sense, where I'm doing a lot of additional work and effort to make these properties successful. So getting to a point where those investors say, we need you, and we need you to take on more properties if they're looking to sort of grow as well. So
what do you think has been the biggest obstacle for you guys, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I would say the biggest obstacle for me early on would have been limiting beliefs. I know everybody's are different. Mine was obviously like, I'm much younger than everybody. Nobody's going to take me seriously. It's going to be hard to actually work this as a business. I was very active with sort of Tony Robbins material and trying to get past those limiting beliefs. So that was one for me, of just sort of being confident in my knowledge and reaching out to people, with that confidence that, I do know what I'm doing. And this is a business that I can run. So that's one of them. I would say the most recent sort of challenges would probably be not delegating enough. So when I started the management, I was doing just about everything, and realizing that that's not really feasible for me, and also was probably not really the best that we could do. So outsourcing and delegating as much as I can to people who are much better at than me is probably a big one. And I think the biggest other thing I would say is, in the sort of the biggest obstacle or challenges, was always just closing on multifamily properties, especially without that experience at the start. So it's not quite like residential. So there's a lot more that's involved, many more due diligence items. It's just a more complicated and longer process. But the biggest way we ever overcame that is just making sure we had a great team in place to help us out. So professional lawyers and insurance agents, inspectors, property managers, all focused on real estate, that could help us get through that process. So we had some messy closing processes for a variety of reasons, but always able to kind of get through them with the help of a good team.
I find that's a very common theme with everybody, is the limiting belief. I mean, it's the one that I think stops most people from moving forward. So it's not an actual challenge of, this came up and how do I get around it? Like, I don't know, you go to look at a property and you find out it's not zoned the way that it needs to be zoned. So someone else might go, all right, clearly this isn't the right thing for me to be doing. I'm going to go back to my job and not worry about this again. And a lot of people do have that limiting belief. And I think that if you can get around that, it's 90% of the struggle.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
What do you think, Andy?
Almost 100%. I mean, it can be 100% the reason why you get out of it, right? So, I mean, it's a pretty important piece. Absolutely. Which is, It's one of the reasons why a lot of these books on real estate investing, other topics similar, financial wealth, that sort of a thing, a lot of them start with mindset, and all that thing. And it's a major piece of it. If you're not in the right state of mind, you're not thinking, big enough, or you're not getting rid of some of those limiting beliefs, then you're not going to be open to accepting the information, the positive results that are going to come from it all, right? So
Yeah,
it's the starting point, definitely.
if you look for it, there is always a reason to back out, for sure. If you, all
Definitely.
you got to do is look for it, and it's
You'll
there.
find it easily. Yeah.
Yeah, and investing and managing as well now can be a very negative process a lot of the time. And if you're looking for any excuse to get out, there's plenty. So just kind of tell yourself, it's part of it. Just kind of do what you can and move on and get through it. And
The management world, for sure, right? There's a lot of negativity in that all day long, right? There's not a lot of reasons tenants are calling you that are positive, right? There's not a whole bunch of reasons that landlords are calling you that are positive. There's usually an issue to deal with, and definitely you got to have your mindset straight to succeed or get through that industry, even just day to day, because it's a tough one, absolutely. And a great one if you do it. You can overcome that and get your business going. It's definitely got a great potential. It's just, you got to know what you're in for and be able to get through that stuff.
Jake, where do you see your business going in maybe over the next year and then beyond?
Yeah, I think over the next year, I personally really want to just standardize everything I've been working on. So I'm still kind of up in the air on a lot of processes and how I deal with things. Always learning and getting new ideas, and make sure that the management itself is running smoothly, where I've got no hiccups. I've got teams in place everywhere that I'm comfortable to take on more units and grow. And then after that, which I'm currently working on as well, is grow my social media and overall brand. So that's becoming more and more important of an aspect of this business. So getting your name out there, networking with people like in the multifamily space, something that I've found and been told is that reputation is huge. There's fewer players in the space, and reputation is key. So making sure that I build that reputation along with a brand and social media just to get my name out there, which will help me raise capital and then start working on some more deals. So hopefully within, say, a year, work on another acquisition, another property. But during that time, just making sure that I've got all the pieces in place to that so that I can do it properly.
Very good.
Makes sense. Yeah, there definitely is there's a smaller community in the bigger you go with bigger units, right? And I think creating a good reputation is a huge thing. Even when you're starting out in it, is you're going to deal with a lot of the same people over and over again, the same building owners, same realtors, same lenders, etc. So I think you're right. That's probably one of the biggest things, actually. That's a big thing in real estate investing in general, but then that multifamily space is even tighter knit, smaller. The bigger you go with them. So hugely important to, keep that reputation high and, not waste people's time, give value, etc. All those big points. Totally agree. Okay. What else, what keeps you going and keeps you inspired and motivated? Obviously, as a fairly young, investor compared to who, we normally think of as investors, you're fairly youthful. So what, I'm excited to see what you're going to do over the next 5, 10 plus years, but what keeps you going? What keeps you inspired to get this going? A lot of people your age are barely out of school, or they're just kind of living on mom and dad's couch a lot of times. So what gets you inspired and motivated to keep going?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of it is just sort of seeing how I would say both of my parents' lives kind of diverge in a way that my father was an electrician. He worked hourly, like a lot in Toronto, worked a ton, not really investing much at all. Whereas my mother obviously went into the real estate investment world and has, larger plans for, say, financial wealth, freedom, things like that. I really just see myself in that freedom set where, I'm working for myself, building the business I want to build, have the time to spend with my family and friends if I want to take it off, and not really be stressing about, the paycheck or where my money is going to come from. So making sure I build an empire and an asset or a group of assets that can sort of support me in that lifestyle. So that is what basically keeps me going, I would say, most of the time. That's probably the biggest one, I'd say. Other than that, always just trying to better myself, learn more, and grow. It's just, it's a fun process. And yeah, I think those are the two biggest things.
I mean, even as small as it is, but being able to sit here and talk to us at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning is like the time freedom that you get when you can create your own schedule. I've always thought of that as one of the most valuable things for me, anyways, being able to create my own time where I need it, when I need it. If I want to do something with my family, I can do it. I can set that time aside. Oftentimes you have to do it pretty far in advance to make sure that you don't step on it. So that can be tricky, scheduling everything in, but you do have that freedom. So I've found that one of the more valuable things. So whereas you were talking about maybe not making up the income 100%, I think you sort of once you learn how to manage it. I know it's tough in the beginning. Once you learn how to manage that time, once you get all those systems in place, you are able to have more of that time freedom, which is important, right? That's what we're all after.
Yeah, exactly. More time to just sort of do what I want to do, obviously, for one, such as, sit down with you guys at 10:30. Whereas while I was working my job, and as everybody would know, trying to buy a property while working full time, you have limited hours in the day to do things in the evening or maybe on a lunch break. And it's stressful for one. And then you just can't do either of those things. So more time for the business here, and then also more time to just get around family and things like that on the other side.
Yeah, you might miss opportunities that way too. If there's something hot on the market, then you're off to see it right away.
You will 100%. Yeah, for sure you will. Whether maybe it's not the biggest opportunity, sometimes it might be, right? You're going to miss things here and there if you can't dedicate or be available when you really need to.
Okay. Boy, I think we pretty much covered everything. Any last words, Jake?
I guess for the most part, just general advice for people who want to either get into multifamily or just investments in general that I've learned this year. Take some time if you can and manage the first property or part of your portfolio at some point, or at least just be really actively involved in it. I think I took for granted a lot of the work that goes into product management and learning the ropes now and really what's involved. It's so important to know what's going on behind the scenes day to day to really see what you can do with real estate. And the other side of that is the things I've learned now, such as say tenant profile, how buildings operate, even things little as like garbage collection in parking lots, like all those little things add up into what I'm now going to be looking for in my next purchases that I wouldn't have known without managing part of this portfolio. And just so knowing what's involved and getting involved, at least part of the process I think would be very valuable to anybody.
That's awesome. And since we oftentimes like to talk about like a book or something, you mentioned one, and I can see it right up on the shelf behind you. That one.
Oh yeah,
That's a really good book as far as managing in Ontario goes. I mean, I know that we're reaching out to other people. That one's specific to Ontario, that Quentin D'Souza book, Property Management Toolbox, but it's a really good one. I mean, it covers all the bases, and it really it's more geared on a human connection, right? As well as the tools to establish that human connection with those people that are living in your properties. So I highly recommend that book. And
yeah, luckily I had that book while I was building up the management procedures, and I used a number of things in that book pretty much as a guide to what I was going to be doing, and I still use it every day. And the second book from Quentin as well, the leasing process, is extremely valuable as well. So I refer to those fairly often now with what I'm doing. And even if you're not fully managing, just read them to know what's really happening in the business, right?
yeah, and like you said, I would agree with that. It's important. I mean, maybe everyone doesn't have the time to do it, but if you do have the time to do it, or if you're into something maybe smaller, and you can manage it yourself at the beginning, just to really get a feel of how things work and to understand that there's a person on the other side of the transaction, um, and all the different things that can come up with management is crazy. Like you probably, Jake, there's going to be something new in 10 years that you would have thought, hey, I think I've seen it all now, and then something new will happen. So it's really an interesting place to find yourself, I think. So thanks for sharing everything today. Really enjoyed all of this. Sandy, any last questions or thoughts?
No, I was gonna mention Quentin's book's a fabulous one. We've had him on the show a couple times. Have we? Was he not guest number 2 or 1 way back? And more recently, I think over the last 10 or 15 episodes. So awesome books, awesome person to get to know if you want to go check out some of his episodes with us. And yeah, again, just I agree totally. We've had that debate actually a couple times on the show about hiring property management out of the gate or not. I think definitely getting an understanding of what a property manager does or what you would need to do, if whether you're doing it yourself or very closely working with or engaging with a management company, I think is invaluable for your growth as an investor for a number of reasons. And it's well worth your time to do that and spend the time there in the beginning, especially so you can be a better investor, learn more about properties and what to look for, etc. So great advice there. I totally agree. And yeah,
Well, I'll
great
tell you,
advice throughout the whole show.
that being said, I'm going to let Jake do the property management. Nothing to do with. So
I would agree with that too. 100%.
That's fair. I don't blame you.
100%.
I want absolutely nothing to do with it at this point. I mean, if you and you're doing it a little bit differently, I think, than we are, right? Like you're replacing your income, you're doing it as a job. But I mean, at this point, for me, it's like I would rather be out looking for the next deal. I certainly feel like I have better things to do than hear about maintenance issues and that kind of thing. So my property managers I love. They're the best. We're actually going to have them on soon, I think. More praise for what you do.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm sort of in a similar boat in the sense that I just want to keep growing this portfolio in a way that I can hire somebody on full time to take over the day-to-day things, because it's a difficult role, right? And I'm on the same side of, there's plenty of wealth to be made in multifamily investing, and I just want to keep looking for more deals. And I think that's where I'm probably better suited. So probably pass it off eventually as well.
Yeah, you got great experience and intel though going forward, right? By being in there hands-on for a while, you're gonna find a lot of value in that going forward. Absolutely, I'm sure you know that.
Well, I mean, Sandy, you did the same thing, right? You got all that knowledge, you learned all that stuff about property management earlier on. You built your systems, and then you guys built a property management company that, as far as I know, I mean, other than business procedures, you guys can step back and somebody else runs that for you now.
Yeah, Kate does, but she doesn't do the day-to-day necessarily stuff anymore. Like we have the leasing team, etc., maintenance, all that. So it's just depends what your goals are, right? And I think the property management for sure on a day-to-day basis, unless you're making your income out of it, is probably not the place to spend your time as an investor. It's still definitely finding deals. That department of it, raising money, is probably your best use. However, early on, you can really learn a lot of stuff in it, and it'll make you more well-rounded. So yeah, like we said, whether you're doing it yourself or engaging closely with a management company, I think those are some great things to do, especially if you only have like one property.
Well, you're building a business, you're building some systems, and I mean, just from talking to you for the last hour, I can tell that you've really got your stuff together. You're on the right track. So definitely interested to see where you go from here. And thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
How can people get in touch with you?
I think the best way is probably just through Instagram right now. Trying to build up that social media presence. So Jake H. Novis on Instagram, or if you want to shoot me an email, jakehnovis@gmail.com. If you want to check out my Instagram, go to the link tree. You can see all sort of the websites and information I have on there about what I'm doing. So feel free to check that out, or just send me a message and we can chat.
Okay, cool. And we will put all the links for your for what you just mentioned in the show notes. So anyone driving or whatever right now can just go in there and find a way to connect with Jake. Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, 2893-896-846 or Sandy at McKayRealtyNetwork.com.
You can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Well, thanks again, guys. This has been really fun. Appreciate it. glad you guys could make it out here today. And thanks everyone for listening on Facebook or wherever you're listening. And we'll see you next time.